Thank you for coming. To begin, let's go around and introduce ourselves. My name is Mrs. Jordan. I'm the special education teacher here at San Marcos Elementary School.
My name is Miss Leon and I'm the principal of the school.
I'm Dr. Gibson, the school psychologist.
I'm Pablo, which is my mom, Marcelo.
And I'm Miss Amudio, the general education teacher here.
Thank you all so much for coming. This morning, our IEP meeting is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to start talking about Pablo's academic background or his medical history. All of that information is sitting right in front of you. We're going to start today's meeting by talking about class. It is the present level of academic achievement and functioning performance, which means how's Pablo doing now? How's he doing academically, behaviorally, socially? So let's start with his strengths. I can start by saying that Pablo is doing really well with his relationship with his peer Andrew. They're very good friends. He is respectful to him and kind, and that tells me that he has the ability to be a good friend when he values somebody.
I agree with that. And I also think that math is a strength for Pablo. At least it was in my class. You know, he would he scores really well on things like his IQ test. He doesn't do so well when it comes to the classwork, but I think that has to do with the behavior. The potential's there. He has the ability to do well in math, and I think that that's a really great strength.
I agree. One of the strengths from Pablo that I see is he has the understanding when we're having conversations, even about things that he read or his writing, when he tells me what he wants to write in a story. The content is there. It's just the output that struggles a little bit, especially in math. He really seems to get it. It's just the testing and homework that struggles a little bit with that. Dr. Gibson, did you have anything to add?
With meeting with him weekly, I've noticed that he recognizes his short fuse because I have given him the right coping strategies to handle his anger when needed.
Okay. Another strength is Pablo really enjoys soccer. It's a time where he can let out some of his energy and get out there and be physically active and have fun with peers. I know that he doesn't get to do it as often as he'd like to because of some of the behavioral challenges. So that can be a strength and a need for Pablo, and something we can discuss with Ms. Marcella about possibly altering how we correct some of those behaviors. So now, does anybody have any other strengths or needs that they'd like to address with Pablo before we move on to some of the accommodations?
I think at the moment, self-contained class is working in a positive way for Pablo. His behavior needs are being met at the moment, and it's helping him grow. So maybe at a later time we could think about transitioning him in a general education classroom.
I agree. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I mean, let's be honest, Pablo's greatest need is his behavior, and if he's working well in a special education classroom, I don't see the point in transitioning him back into a general education classroom. It didn't really work for him. You know, he didn't function well in my class, and I wasn't able to get through to him, you know, and he wasn't able to behave appropriately and kind of change those behaviors. He would call me things like a cockroach, and he would, he wouldn't ever take responsibility for his actions, and I think that special education is a better placement for him.
Okay. Ms. Marcella, do you have anything to add about Pablo's behavior at home? So you're saying Pablo's behavior at home does not reflect his behavior at school. Thank you for your feedback, and thank you for all your input. I think now would be a good time to talk about some of the accommodations and strategies that might make both of you feel at ease about this transition. So in terms of supports and accommodations, Dr. Gibson, would you like to start? I know we had discussed a few ideas that you had had.
Some strategies that I would say: a cool down corner, possible social skills such as anger management, and I need to reevaluate him for medication.
Okay, great, thanks. So you mentioned a cool down corner. I'm not sure that all of us are familiar with what a cool down corner is. Can you tell me tell us a little bit more about that?
It's a place in the classroom where the student is safe. They can sit there for 5 minutes, think, cool down, and process their thoughts.
And then they rejoin the
Yes,
class?
they rejoin the classroom.
Okay. And so he would just get up at any time to go do that?
The teacher cannot tell him to get up, to come back. It's his own private 5 minutes.
So I know we had discussed Pablo is beginning to recognize, yes, I'm frustrated, I'm getting upset, that person's really bothering me, he's noticing things like that. But I know that sometimes in class he doesn't always recognize it. So one thing that we have done, Pablo, is the cue, that I give you a physical cue, and you know I need to back off of whatever I was saying to my peer, you know, what you were doing, right? So that might be a good thing to work together, where when you don't recognize that frustration initially, or your actions initially, that myself or your new general education teacher can continue to use that cue, and then you know, okay, take my timer, set it for 5 minutes, and go cool off for 5 minutes. Does that sound like something that might help you?
Yeah, that'll help.
5 minutes of chill time sounds good? Okay, so what other accommodations or supports could we use for Pablo academically or socially? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add at this point?
Well,
I have a few.
I just kind of want to clarify. Would Pablo be placed in my class, or would he be placed in a different classroom? Because I don't feel like Pablo functioned well in my classroom, and I don't feel like that would be a good placement for him. There's just so much history there. There's a lot of triggers just because of our history. So I just don't feel like that would be a good placement for him if we were going, the general education route.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if we place Pablo directly back into your classroom, we'd basically be reversing what we had done for these last few months.
Right.
So it's important to remember, as we're talking about this, that it's not just undoing what we did and moving backwards, but thinking about the 3 other 5th grade general education teachers that are at the school.
Yeah, I think Mr. Smith would be a good role model for Pablo. Pablo, do you know Mr. Smith?
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, I think if we think about transitioning him in a general education classroom, Mr. Smith would be a good teacher for him to go into.
Great,
I
that's
agree.
good feedback. Thank
Yeah.
you. So in terms of academic accommodations for Pablo, because we addressed that he is currently struggling in writing and reading and the output of math. So 2 suggestions for that is, first, our after-school tutoring program. It is 45 minutes, 2 to 3 days a week, whatever Ms. Marcella is comfortable with. Ms. Marcella, how would you feel about Pablo staying for 45 minutes after school 2 or 3 days a week? Would it meet the needs of your household? Would you be able to accommodate that? Of course we would provide transportation, absolutely. Okay, great. So that would be one possibility for an academic support. And the second one is our buddy system that we have here at the school. When the older kids come in and they help out some of the younger students with whatever it is, whatever they're doing in class at that time. In 5th grade, the same period that the older kids have their study hall when we use this program, it's math in the general education classroom. So that would be a good time to help Pablo not only socially interact with his peers and be able to ask questions, and but also maybe get some of that output happening that we see the disconnect is in math for Pablo.
I think that would be good, especially if we found an older student that was, that models really good behaviors and really good coping skills. That would be something for Pablo to be able to look up to and kind of emulate.
Yeah,
good.
We could definitely pick a specific person
Right.
that would support Pablo. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Anything else we'd like to add at this point?
I think Pablo would be capable of being in a general education classroom with the right interventions and maybe a change of teacher. I think it'll be a successful way for him to go.
It's worth a try.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And I know I would work closely with Mr. Smith if that's the route we decided to go, and make sure that he is comfortable with giving Pablo the support that he needs. Dr. Gibson, did you have anything to add? How are you feeling about a transition for Pablo?
I believe it's the best idea for him. I think he'll thrive with all the right strategies and coping strategies that I give him.
Okay, so we're all on board with the transition for Pablo going to the general education classroom. Ms. Marcella, how do you feel about that? Yes, I agree. Pablo is a great kid, and we're excited that we get to work with him. Okay, so let's move on and let's start talking about some IEP goals that we can get in place.